So, shock horror, the Ferrari is red. It's not all the same red though, and there's also a bit of green on the engine cover. I don't know who made the executive decision on that, but it looks gopping. But the rest of the car, I actually really like. I really dig the burgundy maroon at the rear of the car, which is the same colour they used for that Mugello anniversary livery. And also, they've used the same font for the numbering, number 16 and 55 on the front and the engine cover, obviously, for Leclerc and Sainz. They've used the same numbering they did back at Mugello, and I really rate that. That's a nice little touch, little nod back to their history where the Ferrari red used to be like maroon burgundy, a little bit darker red than we know it now, and I love that blend. It looks a little bit iffy at some angles in the studio shots, but as ever, on track, I'm sure it's going to look sick, and I'm always a fan of colour gradients like that. But then we come to the green part, which apparently was a last-minute decision, so I'm sort of thinking that what they've done here is, because it's a Mission Winnow logo, and we know that they didn't even feature on the car all of last year. They hardly featured on the car in 2019 due to the kind of regulations and issues with it being effectively, you know, Philip Morris and a cigarette brand. So I reckon what they've done, and I think Tomo F1 said this on Twitter as well, is that maybe they've, you know, just put it in green last minute, as Leclerc has said in his statement. It was a very last minute decision. They've just done it in green just for the sake of me, you, and everyone here now is talking about the Mission Winnow logo in green, and they get some free PR, some more PR for it, because it's probably not going to be on the car at most circuits. It probably will at Bahrain, because Bahrain doesn't have any rules about that kind of stuff, I don't think. But most other circuits, European circuits especially, I don't think it's going to even feature on the car, maybe. So it's a non-issue in a way, maybe. If it does feature on the car, I don't know what they were going for, maybe like an Italian flag vibe, but they're kind of missing some extra white there to get that Italian flag vibe on the engine cover. But anyway, apart from that, I actually really dig the maroon blend of that. I like the numbering, and as a car, away from the actual look, the livery, the actual technical parts of the car, very aggressive looking car, and some awesome changes that Ferrari that not only make it look aesthetically better, but also potentially is going to really help them out try and catch up that, you know, mostly top line speed that we're missing last year, but also aerodynamic efficiency that Binotto's been harking on about a lot in this launch. So obviously, as you would imagine, Ferrari have stated that they have completely redesigned the 2021 power unit, as they would. They lost a lot of speed last year. Not only through that, though, they lost a lot of speed. It was a combination of that engine being nerfed, obviously, because whatever agreement they had, we don't fully know the details, and then also because the 2020 car was designed not to have that nerf, and it was designed for an engine that was a bit more powerful. So in fact, the actual car itself ended up being very drag inefficient and was very draggy on the straight, and still didn't have enough downforce really sometimes also in the corners. So they've had to work on that area as well to not only, you know, improve the power unit, which they have. They've apparently completely redesigned it to make it more thermal efficient, etc., etc. All the, you know, usual jazz that they're going to say about improving the engine. But at the same time, Binotto emphasized in the car launch video that Ferrari put out that they've also focused on trying to get the car to be more drag efficient, aerodynamically efficient. So it's not just the power unit in tandem, it's in tandem with the aero, and you can clearly see from the front end of the car, new front wing, new front nose, new reshaped side pods. They really have gone aggressive. Aerodynamically, they can change whatever they want. So the front wing, you know, little attachments here and there on the very top of the chassis, nice little details, that's obviously all allowed. But in terms of the actual chassis itself, and also the side pods, which mimic very much the Mercedes, Williams, and Aston Martin rather, vibes of really vacuum sealing that radiator inlet and really getting that kind of scoop turn as you go down towards that rear end part of the car, which is very important this year. Obviously, if you know, you've been watching the other videos and you just are clued in, this year, they're cutting the floor just ahead of the rear tyre to try and decrease downforce to help Pirelli and the tyres hang on. And that's a lot of downforce teams are losing. So they're trying to regain that a lot. And it's going to be really important, that entire area in front of that area of the front floor, that barge wood area, the side pod, the inlet, the end plates, that's such, it becomes even more important because that's where they're going to recoup that downforce. That's where they're going to find all that time again. And so it's really interesting to see Ferrari go with that that route. Red Bull sort of have a similar sort of take, but Ferrari's one looks to very much be kind of almost a mimic of what we've seen Aston Martin and Mercedes do, where it's a very much kind of flat, you know, from side on, it kind of just goes down like that, and you can see that very clearly from the photos with the way the lighting bounces off it, that very much hunkered down side pod inlet. And then when we come to the nose, very aggressive, very interesting. So they've gone a sort of Alfa Romeo route, similar to them in terms of the way they've tried to tighten up the nose at the front to kind of almost give a bit more space for that cape that goes underneath the nose and kind of tries to scoop air from the front of the car into the bargewood area and underneath into the floor. They've tried to basically get that bit more space to work with, a bit more air actually flowing to that, because Ferrari's nose was always quite boxy, and I don't know, it was ugly as well, but I mean, it was always very kind of peculiar that they've never gone for a thinner nose, because you think so many teams are going that route because you get a bit more space to work in that very important area where there's such a strong vortices being created off the front wing flaps. At the same time, you also get a bit more space to work with the cape, and then also the way just the nose is actually profiled up. So Ferrari finally gone for a bit of a different route. It's still quite boxy up until they taper it down, and then it's very similar to the Alfa Romeo in terms of the way the nostrils are to feed the air through, also through to the S-duct as well. I'm sure there'll be an inlet either on the side, or the actual nostrils themselves might actually work through, or it might just be a pass-through. Hard to tell really from the photos, but Ferrari actually in the launch photos had some really cool sketched out 3D version of their car just for us, so I don't even need to do any drawing lines basically. It's all there, and you can see that difference and that, you know, essentially bigger real estate they have to work with in terms of having air flowing through onto the cape and then round the nose in towards the bargery area. So that's the biggest change for the Ferrari visually. You can see also small details. I really like the small little kind of, you know, horns effectively that Red Bull, Mercedes, so many teams have adopted on the top of the chassis just to try and manipulate the airflow at the top of the chassis and try and get it, you know, to where they want around the halo or to the side, towards the side bod areas. So I really like that. They've gone aggressive with that, with 3 little details. So it's definitely an aggressive looking car from Ferrari. I think they had to be aggressive with their design, what they're going for, and I expect them to bring more aggressive designs throughout pre-season testing later this week, because they have so much to catch up. They are, you know, a top team that is not a top team right now, so they need to catch up so much. It's not, you know, they're going to be aiming, you know, they're going to be aiming for the stars of trying to catch back up to Red Bull and Merc. They're probably only going to land at, you know, being able to compete again with Aston Martin and McLaren properly, and, you know, Aston Martin have come out and said they expect Ferrari to be a big challenge this year, and I do as well. I mean, the amount of resources they've got, they surely should be looking to bounce back, but because they were so much slower last year, it's a big question mark of have they done enough with the power unit and also this aero efficiency with the new nose, new front wing, smaller little aero details being more aggressive, and the side pods. Is that enough to make the car more efficient in a straight line, and have they got enough downforce in the corners to also compete? Because that car was also very unstable in a rear end, on the front end as well, into and out of corners anyway, and that's got nothing to do with the aero efficiency of the drag. That's all to just do with the downforce, the chassis as well, and also maybe the way the power unit also works in terms of the smoothness of the power delivery as well. And then on top of that, if we just look at the team as a whole, they've also got this new dynamic of Carlos Sainz coming in. I've made a video previously on Sainz going to Ferrari and whether Ferrari have got too much for what they bargained for in terms of, I feel like Sainz and Leclerc, at some point, there will be a hot moment. You know, Sainz is no slouch, and I think there will be a point in the season where maybe Ferrari have a bit of a management issue with how they work, how they deal with that. And then going back to the actual power unit itself, that's a real massive question mark, because they can redesign all they want. You know, they've done it before, and it sometimes hasn't worked out for them. So that's, you know, the massive question for not only them, but also Haas and Alfa Romeo, because obviously, remember, Ferrari supply those two as well. So that's a huge thing for all 3 of those teams, because all 3 of them got hit by that issue, and all 3 of them, I suspect, actually had issues with efficiency of they designed cars that for a much more powerful engine. So that will be a massive thing for them to test out in pre-season testing, and I guess we'll see how that shapes up versus the other cars. But the Ferrari, you know, going back to the aesthetics of it and the livery, apart from the green, which I hope we don't actually see most of the time, because minus that, I actually really dig it. I don't know about you guys, Ferrari fans out there, that I've seen a few on Twitter that have said they really don't like that burgundy blend. I really like it. I really like the nod to the classic Ferrari livery, and also with the font and whatnot. And at the end of the day, you know, you can't go wrong with the red car, but the green is a bit weird. But again, like I said, I think it's a bit more of a PR stunt, basically, if anything. And then, yeah, in terms of the technical parts of the car, they've gone, yeah, aggressive like they had to go. Whether it works out for them, let's see, because we've historically seen other teams, not just Ferrari, other teams, you know, sometimes they come out with very aggressive-looking cars, and sometimes it's maybe just a bit too much, maybe. So that's also another caution point of that as well for me. In terms of other areas of the car as well, apparently they've also spent 2 tokens on the gearbox and new rear axle. So that in tandem, I'm sure with the power unit, was also a big decision in terms of why they want to spend it on that part of the car. So in tandem with the new power unit, it seems like they're quietly confident. Well, not quietly, they are confident, and obviously they're going to say that. Whether it comes through, I don't know. I would kind of hope that Ferrari learnt their lesson in terms of, you know, maybe last year they had to be brutally honest, but I think at times they weren't as brutally honest as they maybe could have been in the run-up to the season of how actually slow they were going to be. So I don't know. It's hard to call really with Ferrari sometimes in the pre-season of, you know, where their car is actually going to stand, but you know, they're making all the right steps to try and find enough time, whether it's enough to jump back up ahead of Aston Martin and McLaren and actually bridge that gap again to the top teams of Red Bull and Mercedes. Who knows? Aston Martin think they'll be right there. And I don't know. In terms of my opinion, it's for the sake of the sport and for the sake of competition and entertainment, I hope they're right back up there. Like, if they're right there, you know, with Aston Martin and McLaren, that's going to be fantastic. Whether they do, I'm not too sure. Like, from what they're saying, it looks all good, but we just won't know until pre-season, sadly. As it always goes with Ferrari, as it always goes with F1, sorry, is the stopwatch doesn't lie. So that has been the Ferrari launch. Overall, I like the look of the car in terms of the actual technical parts of it. Livery-wise, like I said, overall I kind of like it, apart from the green just a bit. I'm still, last minute, who made that decision? And if they did, I really hope it was for that reason of it's just a PR stunt of, you know, we'll talk about it more like we are right now, basically. Because if it wasn't, if it's like genuinely like, yeah, you know what, some green will look good on that car that is mostly red without any whites to go for the Italian flag, I don't know. But let me know what you guys make of it. If you did enjoy the video, then be sure to hit the like button. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. And because I will potentially be doing some content around pre-season testing. I'm still working out what exactly I want to do, because I did a few things last year, like your F1 comments, and I'm not too sure if I want to bring that back and try it again this year, because it kind of pattered out a little bit. Let me know in the comments below, guys. Did you enjoy your F1 comments? Do you want to see that come back, maybe in a bit of a different style, maybe a shortened style, something like that? I'm not too sure. Let me know. But there will be some sort of content around pre-season. And also, there's going to be a video tomorrow about ranking the liveries. So if you've watched all the way to the end here, you know some info about tomorrow's video. But till then, goodbye.